Well, welcome to Good Life U, and this is podcast number 8. And we're going to have one more later this year, but this is really the second from the last. And it's a series. And if you remember all the other times I talked to you about a series, we kind of like you watching them that way. You can certainly watch this one, and it will stand on its own, but you might get something from the previous ones. So go back to our series and take a look at it. Last time in podcast 7, we talked about our lifestyle models, and that included professional families. It included, which is basically live-in employment-based models. It included professional roommates and professional neighbors. And we saved one model, a lifestyle model for today, which was probably our biggest one, and that was our professional extended family model, which we're going to talk about today. And it's basically a shared living approach to care. So all of this began in about 1999 when a long-term employee, Chris, came to us and basically made a proposal. He had been with us a long time, and he had served a number of people. One in particular really fit his family. And he wanted to know if it was possible if that person could just join his family and that he would provide care in the context of his family. And in all truth, we all were very excited by the idea, but we knew it was complicated and different than we'd ever done before. And there wasn't a lot of national examples, at least at the time, for serving adults in this way. And so we were very excited, but we were kind of concerned on how we go about doing that. And so we talked, with that couple, and we talked with the natural family or the guardian and the client, and everybody just wanted to make it work. We didn't want to approach this as an employee model because it wasn't really. It was more of a lifestyle. It was actually closer to what you would think of as foster care, a specialized foster care. And in fact, when we looked into it, that's exactly how it was characterized by the IRS, because this is, we weren't the first to have done this, but we were certainly the first in Kansas in our region to do it. And there weren't a lot of examples, but the IRS had looked into and made provisions for adult foster care for people with intellectual disabilities and other types of disabilities. So they viewed it as a specialized care for people and a contractor. So people would actually be a contractor to provide care. So the model existed, and we studied it a lot. We actually traveled around the country a little bit and looked at a couple of programs that actually did exist, one particular in Arizona that we kind of modeled our initial services after. And we eventually created a model of care for Kansas that's now called GoodLife's Professional Extended Family Model. And it's the first in Kansas, and we got permission from the state of Kansas, the Secretary of the state of Kansas, to develop and implement this model as a placement and oversight program for that new approach, to care. So we were pretty excited about that, and Chris was our first family for us doing that. So how does it work? Well, a professional extended family at its core is a relationship-based model. It is a model that works for people who have long-term relationships and have really made the choice that they really want to join their lives together. So it's a whole different approach. And as we talked in the last episode, those kinds of initiatives we talked about last time, the professional neighbor, the professional family, and the professional roommate were all employment-based versions where they didn't fully jump into a lifestyle. They had some separateness, but at the same time, they were all kind of moving in this direction. This one is truly a full lifestyle for people. Most of our extended families were direct support professionals in our own program. And sometimes they were professional families that we talked about or professional neighbors. They would come from different walks, but really they were our own employment base. In some cases, they might be, people who worked at other agencies who had long-term relationships, and that company didn't offer this lifestyle option. Sometimes we even have people who are paraprofessionals in the school where a graduate of the school was somebody that they really thought that this might be a good option. But in every case, it's always been somebody who had a long-term relationship, generally before entering into this, this type of lifestyle. It is a program, at least at GoodLife, that is cultivated at the beginning of everybody's employment. We look at this as a career path for direct support professionals to climb up a ladder that doesn't lead to an exit. And we feel that there ought to be a way that care can be professionalized and can be a life profession for somebody. And this is designed for that to occur in ways that maximize compensation and flexibility for people to live a good life for not just the person that we serve, but also for their family. It's really a win for everybody. So we start this by cultivating, even at new staff orientation with our normal employees. We describe this program and we let them know that this is a possible avenue for them. There's several opportunities across a year where they learn of some possible options for them to do that. And it's certainly not for everybody, but we do really try to cultivate an interest in this from the beginning. Our website at GoodLife, if you go to it, has videos of what it's like to be in a professional extended family, and it has testimonials. It sort of has a peek at the lifestyle of this, and you have to do this because this isn't something that would be organic to people thinking as a direct support opportunity. So you have to put some effort into explaining what this is. And we offer all these other positions for people to get a little bit of taste of. But one of the big ones is that these extended family providers of shared living often need respite. And the best way to cultivate more placements is the people who provide that respite see every day or many times a week what it's like to live this life, and that probably generates as much interest in that lifestyle as any other thing that we do. Through this process, this cultivation process, we probably create about 5 to 10 placements a year, and through that process, we've grown that program to serve 110 to this very soon 120 people in a variety of places in our region in that program, and it grows organically every year by 5 to 10 placements. So it's a program that starts and is relationship driven, and it sort of percolates placements from our employment-based program methodically, but over time that program has grown. In fact, now I think about 30% of all of our residential placements are from are in that particular shared living program. So once people make the decision that they want to pursue this life, the DSPs, for example, would make this decision, they enter into sort of an educational and vetting process where we go over the details in specific training about what it's like as a lifestyle, but also even the business and what is the outcomes that they're to achieve, and really give them a flavor for what is required of them. One of the other things that we do is we really work hard on trying to analyze their lifestyle. We don't want them to change their life completely when they move to this program. We want to make sure that the two people can join lives and that it's a match. Most people also enter our program with a person in mind that they want to serve, and some people have learned they love to do this, but they are open to who it might be. And so we develop a profile of their family, and we develop a profile of the type of person that would fit well into it, and hopefully we find a match in that process. We do complete home studies, and that's a very difference. We actually go into their home and we look at it, and sometimes they actually go and seek a home that works for this extended family. but sometimes they want this person to move into their current home, and we do a home study. And when we're not just looking at the physical aspects of the home, but we'll look at, do they have pets? What kind of lifestyle do they lead? What's their family like, and how do they feel about this? Everybody has to be kind of in for this to work. Some clients that we had placed there, they would love to go see their children play football or basketball or soccer or go to school events. I mean, these guys often join a lifestyle that's interesting to them, and that's all part of the quality of life that we're trying to find. Of course, vetting a professional, extended family is more challenging than simply hiring people. It takes a long time to do it. Even when you come into the program knowing the person that you want to support and having been a direct support provider, it can take 90 days to 4 months for a placement to occur, to get all of the information together and just to make sure that everything's a good match. And if they actually don't have somebody specifically in mind, they just know they want to enter into the life, it can take 6 months or more to find that right person, and we expect them to develop a relationship with them before the placement. So it's not quick, but in order to place, say, 15 people in a year, you may start with 25 potential candidates. So you have to have a fairly rich pipeline, and in order to do that, your employment base has to be fully engaged in learning about this. And so we have about 350 employees, and from that, each year we place 5 to 10 people into this program, and it's interesting because it's one of the only programs where you can actually place people into without the program expanding their housing or transportation resources, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's a very seamless way for growing a program. You can take somebody in your homes. That's an employment-based program. You can place them into a shared living program, and then bring somebody from the outside into your homes. So you're growing your census sort of organically by percolating placements up to our professional extended family program or our shared living program. Once we go through all the training and the vetting and work with the family guardians and all parties and make a placement, it really, that just starts things, and there's a fairly comprehensive program that we have for supporting people who move to this program. That includes coaching and training and sort of mini evaluations on a curriculum that we have for people that go into this. And then annually they have to, basically pass a certification evaluation in order to continue life as a professional, extended family. And so that goes on annually, and it kind of never ends, with the goal of us kind of improving services across time. And the business side of this includes the fact that they're not only placed and matched and all the things that we described, but there's a contract, and there's pay strategies associated with it. And the people who enter this life they enter it as a kind of specialized adult foster care, and they're independent contractors. And basically the contract specifies the general outcomes that we expect to see achieved, some key processes that have to be implemented, and just general practices that we would expect. I would say it's not in any way like an employee where you can control how they do their job specifically, because these people are living on their own and without as much in-house supervision as other programs. That's why all the vetting is important. That's why all the quality assurance reviews are important. But the key outcomes, the essential lifestyle preferences, which is like the person-centered support plan, and critical care practices are all embedded in the contract and all regularly reviewed. The contract is kind of like, if I give you an analogy, it's kind of like if you built a home. Well, if you built a home, you wouldn't just find a contractor and say, hey, build me a home. You would say, here's some plans specifically that I want, here's where I want it built, and here's the specs or exactly how I want it built. But we're going to let you have some flexibility in how that's done. So it's an agreement for people to provide services independently, but within a lot of parameters of how you expect them to deliver care. So it's a compromise that's very outcome oriented and very performance oriented, as opposed to process oriented, if that makes sense. As for pay, they receive what's called a difficulty of care payment and a room and board payment. Those really combine into one payment, but it's for caring for them and for their room and board. And it varies depending on the level of need of each client. And I'm not going to get into the details. It's beyond more than what we could do today. However, under reasonably specific circumstances, that pay is tax-free for the professional extended family. So they can be paid very well, tax-free. And that's, of course, a huge benefit for the family and really cements long-term relationships. Approximately 15 years ago, maybe closer to 20 now, we did a study of the outcomes that was achieved by our professional extended family program, and what we found out was that they were able to achieve some really important outcomes that were superior to the same people who were served previously in group homes and small staffed residential settings. This approach has far fewer numbers of people involved in care. That's probably the most important thing to know. We have approximately 700% less people involved in care for that client across a year, which is significant. And also the stability is uncompromising. The professional extended family program has an annual turnover rate somewhere between 1% and 3% since 1999. I mean, historically, there's never been anything that's been that stable. We have people who have been, in fact, the person that was involved in the founding of this program remains today as a extended family provider in our program. So the stability is unparalleled. We have people who have been there 5 to 10 years. So it really is an amazing program. And because of that, there's significant improvements in care and life satisfaction. The initial study we did showed that the people would go to their ideal weight. They would have fewer medications than they did previously. Their behavioral challenges were reduced and health outcomes were increased. I mean, literally every measure you could look at for life quality, including satisfaction, increased as their time in this model continued. So most importantly, it's just been that program that's been our rock in GoodLife that everybody kind of aspires to grow to, and that makes all the difference. The advantage for the extended family, however, is equally important, and it's important also that you know that the goal of this is to have a win. I call it a win-win-win relationship. It's a win for the person served and their family, of course. It's a win for the extended family, and it's a win for GoodLife too, because when you have 7 fewer employees to deliver care, especially if you know where we are today with how challenging the labor force is, that really matters. So for the extended family provider, it's tax-free compensation, and they get money for housing and transportation too. And so that's really, that improves not only life for persons that they serve, but also their entire family's life is elevated because of that. It's a life choice, and it's a career path that really is probably the most frequently traveled path in our agency. I mean, of course, direct support professionals can become managers, and they can become, site directors or other things, but that has a limit because we don't only have so many of those kinds of roles. We almost have an unlimited number of these positions that they could aspire to. It has tremendous flexibility and independence, and you're able to improve the quality of everybody. So I think it's great. From the outcomes for a good life, we've gone over, but we need less people to provide care. It reduces the need for support services because behavioral services and health services go down because the outcomes are improved. It does not have a need for significant replacement staffing, of course, in this model. So that's been wonderful. And I have to make a point. During this last 2 years of COVID, there is no model that can compete with what this offers, because in terms of sheltering in place, you've got a family where you can actually shelter in place. We did, we're grateful to say that we've had no deaths, of course, in this model. We've had a few cases where COVID has occurred in this model, but it's very isolated because people are separated from everybody else. So the probability of transmission across people is very low, and your ability to shelter in place is very high. It's one of those models that allows GoodLife to grow without increasing its housing and transportation, and that's really important. And probably to end with kind of the major, there's a couple of disadvantages or things to be mindful of with this model. First of all, it's not a quick fix. There's no way that you can take somebody from left field and right field and put them together and just hope that everything works out. Although I know that does happen, it should not happen, and it will not happen in our program, and it shouldn't happen as you approach us. You need to look at this as a relationship-based model that is the extension of your services, not a model where you start and place people without those long-term relationships. So the other thing is, there's some people that have been challenged to be appropriate in this model, and people who are up at night consistently all the time, it's really not a good match because it would be too wearing on the extended family to do that. The other thing I can say is you just have to be really careful about the match. Now, it's honestly, there may be a client who doesn't want to go out in the community too often. And that's okay as long as you find a match family that feels that way too. Where it gets problematic is when the match isn't there and one person wants to be real active and the other doesn't, or the things they like are significantly different. And then, of course, it's just not a win-win. And that's really important. Another thing to be mindful of, probably the last thing, is that in a normal shift-based program that you have small homes or group homes with shift staff, there is change all the time. I mean, staff, as you know, turnover is almost epidemic in our workforce now. And we've talked many things that we can do to reduce that, but it's still very high. So there's always a loss of relationship that goes on in a staff-based model. However, in this model, there isn't. But what we found is when there is a change, the reality is the provider works very hard to make that transition seamless. Oftentimes, the respite person becomes, is planned to become the new shared provider, and there's a pass-off. The other thing you need to know is oftentimes it's not just that they lose that person in their life and is replaced by somebody else, but sometimes they actually have to leave the home, and move in another home. So people have looked at that as a negative part of it, and I certainly understand that. But when you look at the bigger picture and you say, look, in an employment-based program, the truth is they move far more frequently than in a extended family model program. They actually move more frequently. There's more change in their lives on almost a daily basis. So there is, that's an overwhelming downside for the reality that you may have a decade or more of consistent care, and that these shared, living providers care so deeply about the relationship, they work sometimes months or even a year or more on a pass-off that's about as seamless as possible. Just to illustrate the issue about transitions, and the lengths to which these sort of extended family teachers will go to make it smooth for people, I have to tell you the story of Chris, who was actually the founding placement of this program. Several years after he became a provider, he and his wife were in a horrible auto accident where a transport trailer hit them, and it was really horrible. And Chris was hospitalized for, a few months and had significant rehabilitation. And of course, immediately, like overnight, his placement, Byron, couldn't stay in the home because they weren't coming back to the home. Well, Byron was sort of a beloved family member, and I know it was reciprocal, and so Byron was also a bit traumatized by what had happened. But, Chris and his family had this incredible extended family. I'm not just brothers and sisters and family members, but even the family of Byron's family and how all that worked together. They were a group together, and what was amazing was that two people who were the brother and brother-in-law and sister of Chris stepped forward and said, we've got Byron. And so Byron actually moved into their home for months with their family in a day, and just continued receiving that support until Chris was able to move back home, and they were all united several months later. But it just was an example of why on the surface you might think that when you lose a placement in this program, that it can be traumatic, and it can be, but the relationships are just so deep that they do everything possible to keep the focus on the person that they're serving. Those are examples of real human stories where this program, because it's a relationship model, just works. One of my dearest mentors and professor friend at the University of Kansas, Todd Risley, wrote a book or a training manual called Get a Life. And the whole point of the training was the best way to assure an enriched life of a person with intellectual disability for him to join the life of somebody else who has already an enriched life, and together they can lead a great life. And I think he was foreseeing the development of this program, and I really believe that this is what's happened. So as we go back, this is a lifestyle program, and you percolate it from your DSP-based workforce, but sometimes other places as well. And it's a wonderful option for those people that we serve. With that, I'll tell you the next episode, episode 9, should be the one we end our year with. And we're probably going to recap all of the work that we've done so far and talk about how one would approach implementing these services in your agency. So thank you very much, and we look forward to next time.